Welcome, Col. Welcome to the Crack On podcast and welcome to my home.
Thank you. Good to see you again.
Well, yeah. Last time I saw you, I think I saw the back end of your wheel and your ass actually when we were cycling a couple of times.
Yeah, I think those days of big afro sticking out of the helmet and cycling away for charities were just great fun and a great chance to meet new people, make new friends.
Yeah, I remember just I suppose one of the first ones we roomed together. I mean, I was just saying to Andy that I was rooming with you, and the first time we roomed, the first night we were in, and we were having a chat. You came out the shower, and I was like, I was just talking to you, and then the towel went down. I thought, hey, we must know each other pretty well. Now. We cycled a day, we know each other well now.
Yeah, I think there's that let's just say a lifetime within sport, a lifetime in rugby. You automatically feel comfortable around the other guys. We'd enjoyed a day's cycling.
Yeah.
You feel very relaxed with other guys, and you just got to get on with it together. So
of course you do.
Sorry for frightening you.
No, it wasn't frightening. I felt pretty small, but anyway, let's move it shifting on. Look, welcome to the house, welcome to the podcast. What about how we normally start? Knock me off kilter a bit, but how we normally start is just take us back to wherever you want to go to. So, talk to us about who Colin is.
Yeah, so, I've had I'd say the time playing rugby was probably the simplest and easiest time of my life. Physically demanding and, emotionally, mentally demanding, but you're on a path. And somebody else is controlling a lot of that path for you with the management structure. The time before that, growing up as a mixed race kid in the Midlands, single mum was disabled, mum died when I was young, so I've pretty much been left to my own devices and to find my own path. And it wasn't really until I'd say I found rugby that I really got on a very promising path and led me here eventually, but no. So it was now that I look back and reflect on it, nowhere near as tough as a lot of people, but quite a tough childhood, and then found my new family within Wales, and particularly within Swansea Rugby Club, and then with the Welsh team, and then everything's been a bit more settled, and being able to have more of a base to my life and crack on with things.
Crack on, as if by magic, that's the word. The crack on is the way forward, right?
Yeah, I think that we can all live our life by cliches, but they're there for a reason, and some of them, just keep them in your back pocket. Life is too short to be small. That's another one of them.
Yeah.
Show some attitude, get involved. That's another one I like. Get on with things, crack on, roll your sleeves up. That's what I was brought up with, and you've just got to do it, because if you don't roll up your sleeves and get on with it, nothing's ever going to happen for you.
I'm really interested in that, where people come from and how that impacts your life going forward. That start of life, that tough start, how much of an impact do you think that's had on everything you've done since? I know we're going to go into your career and what you've done and where you're doing now, but how much did that start, do you think, have an impact on where you are?
I think that difficulties in people's childhoods can make them a bit more resilient, and the unfortunate side of it may be a little bit too independent.
Right. In what way?
Well, for example, if something very simple happens to me, and I've got to change a tyre, and my mate will say, "Don't worry, I'll be over in 15 minutes and I'll help you." By the time he's arrived, I've done it. That you just become a little bit too independent, that there are a lot of people out there that can give you the help that you really need, and it's just too easy when you are too independent to just think, "No, I can sort this out." And I think that one of the things that affects you then when you're moving on through life is looking for people for support.
Right.
And we've just had the Rugby World Cup, and watching those players, watching the Welsh team, they're off the pitch, they're hugging their wives, they're hugging their mums, their dads, their children are there, and it's great to see that those guys have that support.
Yeah.
But to be fair, of the 94 games that I played for Wales, I think I had a family member at probably 6 games, if that.
What,
So,
watching or?
just watching.
All right.
You know, the whole telling my grandma I was going to Australia for the Lions, she didn't really know what I was doing.
Right.
You know, that you become a bit independent, and I think people look at their leaders and think there's a lot of strength there, but sometimes those leaders do still have to. They need a cuddle too. They need a cuddle. And I'd say that my childhood has probably led to that. The independence, and then playing for Swansea, playing for Wales, playing for London Welsh, being part of that family, being part of those teams, has gradually got under my skin, and I'm a bit more dependent on other people and allow myself to help them as well.
So the cuddles, who did give you the cuddles? Where did you find those cuddles from at that time?
Well, I think there's some great stories that the lads will tell you about playing for the Whites. We were all in our early 20s, and I can remember myself being injured and one of the lads driving me up to the hospital. I can remember one of the lads being injured. We'd all turn up the next day at the hospital in the maxillofacial clinic to see how he was with his head like a melon.
Yeah.
That the players themselves were each other's support. A lot of us lived away from our families, lived away from our homes. And that group of guys, the cliche about a band of brothers, I can get quite emotional at times thinking what those guys did for each other and how we supported one another through winning, through losing, through injuries.
Yeah.
We learnt then you've always got to be there for one another.
And on that losing piece, I mean, at one stage I think you quoted that you were the third most hated person in Welsh rugby, or in Wales generally. Where were the players then, or how did you get through that bit?
Yeah, I think when a newspaper wants to print something like that about you, it's gonna hit you hard. But the players, the management team within Wales, they all stick together. There's a few text messages, there's a few phone calls. You got to remember that we still have to turn up to training on Monday. We've lost a game, but we've still got to try and put things right and look forward to the next game with a positive attitude. So I think that comes from players. We've all had a dose of disappointment. Some people managed to stay in the shadows and didn't get the finger pointed at them, but at that time I was captain, so you're the first person to have the finger pointed at you.
Yeah.
But yeah, you look at the lieutenants around you, the support of all the other players and the management, and you have to go back to training on Monday. It's not as though that newspaper can magic up a new group of players to take on the next team in the Six Nations.
Just go again.
Yeah, well, there's if it once, there's you've got to think about that, and I think this is within most walks of life. With sport, when you're being heavily scrutinised, it's not as though you can just replace the team overnight. The management have deemed those players as the best group to represent our nation, or the club, whoever it be at the time, and it's not as though we can just replace those players. They have to put their bandages on, pull themselves back together, and go back to training on Monday, pick themselves up, and as a group, you share that responsibility, and you've got to move forward.
I love that, and the fact that leadership piece, we're going to come to. You captain in sort of Wales for as often as you did, and take us back to where it all started. Then, where did rugby come in? I know you sort of were at Midlands and you came over to Wales. How did it all start?
Yeah, well, I was a soccer crazy kid growing up in the Midlands, and
I wouldn't want to play with you in midfield. Then
I think back then a bit of a lanky centre back.
Right. Okay. So I wouldn't want to play against you.
And. No, I ended up going to an all-boys school, a grammar school. I was lucky enough to pass an exam to get into it.
Yeah.
And they didn't play football.
Right.
So I was forced to play rugby at 11 years of age. And I think by the time I was about 13, I gave up playing football on the weekends and realised that I was a bit of an oaf maybe for football, but... the rugby, I was thoroughly enjoying rugby, and I was 13 years old. I joined a rugby club. I played for my school as well, and just the camaraderie, The physical challenge, the mental challenge just meant a lot more to me than any sport I'd played before. Fortunately, being that lanky oaf, I suited rugby, and just from there on, just enjoyed every single time I managed to put my boots on, put a jersey on, and go out and play.
And it took you from there then. How did Wales actually come about? Because one of the things I read was the granny gate and getting into the Welsh ones again.
Yeah.
What was...
Snuck in through the back door, and I was part of that granny gate media, but no, I went down to London when I was 18 years old to university. I ended up playing for London Welsh, and I think again very emotional time for me. I'm an 18-year-old lad trying to find his feet in the world, trying to find a place, and to be honest, trying to find a family. And I found that at London Welsh. I stayed there for 4 years, and pretty much, the bonds that I'd forged with that club, with that group of people, there was no real question of me staying in England and looking to try and play for England. I wanted to come to Wales, and it was just as much for myself as for all those players that had influenced my life for a few years at London Welsh. They all meant so much to me, and they'd supported me so much. I thought, I'm an adult now. I'm going to go and apply my trade in Swansea and see if I can get that red jersey.
And then sort of it happened, right?
Yeah, it happened. It was. I joined Swansea. I was very lucky with a coach named Mike Ruddock, who we'll all know.
He's back there now.
Yeah, he mentored me quite well. A lot of young players within the team. And a lot of aspirations within the team. So I was in a very good culture to flourish.
Yeah.
And
what was it about that culture then? What was it about? What was it? You mentioned resilience a few times, and then there's your personal resilience. But what was it about that team? And what qualities do they have?
Yeah, well, Mike had made it pretty clear that he wanted everyone in the team to be at least Wales A standard,
right,
and hoping for more. So you went into that changing room knowing that there's a few British Lions in the room. There are a lot of guys who are high-end caps for Wales in that room. Now, guys I'd watched on TV as a kid and thought were amazing.
Like
Tony Clement.
Tony Clement, yeah.
Clement, and and I'll shout out to Tony every time I get a chance that in the Millennium Stadium when we opened it, and I was there playing for a few years, everybody had their own little changing area. And everybody had a photo of their family or something important in that little locker. And I had a photo of Tony Clement on my wall. So, great guy.
What was it about it then? Because what sort of qualities has Tony got? Because I noticed that you say he's one of the best players or best people you've played with.
Yeah, I always felt that Tony, he was captain at Swansea when I first got there. Clem had an amazing ability playing rugby. And there's no doubt he was a Lion, and no doubt he played for Wales so many times, and such a star as a Swansea lad. But he brought humour to the changing rooms. You could see the look in his eye. There was always a glint that, it's serious. We've got to work hard, but we've got to enjoy ourselves, and we'll enjoy ourselves if we do this together. And when you learn that, I was quite young, you learn that kind of attitude from Clem. You just got to take that with you, because we were a good team down at the Whites. Obviously we didn't win every game, but we put our all into our training sessions, and we put our all into having fun on and at times off the pitch. It was a really, really close, good group of guys.
And as a leader, what sort of qualities?
Clem, well, he led by example to begin with. His talents showed us that. He had a bad Achilles injury as well, and a bad knee injury in those first couple of years I was there, and he came back from injury well, and his determination, when you're a young lad and you're watching one of your idols just jog slowly round the pitch, being reintroduced to running, and seeing his determination, it makes you think, he didn't sit back on his laurels with all that he'd achieved in the past, and he brought that humour, he brought that respect for one another, and that hard work for one another. Clem was a I was very lucky to have him so early as a captain, quite early on in my career.
Yeah, and there was many traits that, moving on to your captaincy, as your leadership. Is there something that where would you put those qualities with your leadership style?
I think the initial one of you've got to have yourself squared away.
What do you mean by that?
So your own performance has to be consistent. So I can hold my hand up and say I was not the best flanker in the world, and I can hold my hand up and say, but for my ability and how I played, I was very consistent.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's important, especially if you're the leader. Your behaviours need to be very consistent. Your performance needs to be very consistent. And if you're going to point the finger and shout or wave your hand and praise the rest of the team, get yourself squared away first. And then when it came to my leadership, I'd learned a lot from. I'd been in the cadets as a kid. I had some experience of time away with the army as a kid. Learned a lot from those leaders. Very different styles, but you kind of got to put as many things together as you can. And I'll say about some of the best captains that I've been around. If we were all in the trenches in World War I, and we've all got to get out and run at the enemy lines, there's one person who hasn't got a gun and he's got a flag, and he gets up and runs first. And I think the leader that can do that, Tony Clements, Martin Johnson's, for example, if you can get anywhere near their standard, you're doing pretty well.
Yeah, Fab, I love that as well. I love that analogy of carrying the flag.
Yeah, well, not everyone. When you look at the rugby team, not everyone gets to score the tries, kick the points. I look at some of the props. Not everyone gets that demolishing their scrum moment, the second row stealing their line out moment. Not everyone has those golden moments in the game, but we all have our moments. And I think that the leader, whether he has those moments or he doesn't, he stays consistent. His behaviours are good, and everyone else knows he's out the trench with the flag.
I love that. No, the consistency bit. Talk us about, for anyone who's not, and I'm one of them actually, there's never been in elite sport. What's that elite? What's it like in elite sport to enter that world of, because that is about consistency, and what is it like entering it? How did you find it over those, because we were talking about how long your career lasted. You're in elite sport for a long period of time.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different opinions on things. Like I was quite a laid back character. I used to sleep in the changing rooms before a game, and some of the players didn't like that.
Right.
Some of the players would go crazy in the gym on the weights. And I was quite laid back about that and quite relaxed. And I think it was Adam Jones, who wrote in his book that he's never seen anyone so laid back in training or in the gym, but yet performs on the pitch.
Yeah.
And so we have to be tolerant of each different person's attitudes towards training, towards their lifestyle. But if everyone shares the common goal of that performance, elite performance, Saturday afternoon, being the best you can possibly be, that's when we all come together. So we'll have a bit of fun in training, we'll have a bit of fun on the odd night out. You can't stay serious all the time. You've got to have a lot of respect for one another because there's different people. But elite sports all boils down to those 80 minutes in rugby. For sprinters, it's less than 10 seconds nowadays. But I think that when you enter into that world of making sure you're ticking all the little boxes, the boxes the management need to see on the way you map your lifestyle, the boxes that the coaches need to see, both physical preparation, team preparation on the pitch, mental preparation. It's all about whatever your balance of those, getting them right, slotting in with the team, and making that performance on a Saturday really, really show and work. And I think within leadership, you have to then look at yourself. If you're the leader, like you think about an engine in a car, the leader isn't the engine in the car. There's cogs in that engine, and there's lots of different sized cogs. The guy who kicks all your points is a very big cog.
Yeah.
The guy who pushes in your scrum is a very big cog. The flanker who tries to steal a few balls and make a few tackles, carry the ball a little bit, is just another cog. And it's all about making sure all those cogs fit together and they're all spinning in time. And I think when I tried to talk about the lifestyles, the training attitudes, all leading towards the performance on the weekend, getting all those cogs, you spend weeks tuning that engine to get all those cogs to run together. And as the captain, you might be a small cog, but you're an important cog. And so long as all the other ones are working and you're doing your job, the engine runs.
Love that. I love that. And 99, you said that was your favourite, the best time or the best period of play under Graham Henry. What were the cogs? How did the cogs work? And what was the one thing I'm really interested in is the goal. You said about understanding in elite sport, you've got to have the goal. You've got to understand where you're going. What was the goal when Graham Henry came to sort of to coach Wales? What was the difference or the shift in that?
I think that one of the things I learned when Graham joined in '98 is, and bear in mind we were off the back of a hiding.
Absolutely.
We'd come off like a record defeat to the Box in Loftus-Versfeld. And a lot of the guys from that game didn't play another game. And it was an awful time for us as individuals to pick ourselves up from that, but also it didn't shine well at all on Welsh rugby. Graham arrived with some fresh ideas, and there was changing players. And I think that when we talk about ambition, he arrived with ambition. And if you think about, I mentioned, and you mentioned, sorry, those 10 games that we won in a row. But think about the ambition. So right at the very top, the Welsh Rugby Union have just built us a new stadium with a sliding roof. And you think, wow, what an investment in Welsh rugby. Graham's investing in us. This one of the best coaches from New Zealand has come and picked up a team that have just had a cricket score put on them by South Africa. And we had a lot of rugby league players coming back to play domestically. They had an impact. They were bringing that rugby league attitude and that ambition. And then, players like myself, I was, 27, 28 years old, and you just caught things at the right time. We went out to France, we won in France. We beat England in Wembley, which was an amazing day. 25th anniversary of that is just coming up.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, mate. I will hold it. That for me I was in Wembley, and me and my mates, we got on a bus down with my dad, and it was such a game. Right at the bottom of the stairs, as we came to the bottom, Gwyn Evans was at the bottom. I think he just had his accident. He was at the bottom hugging, and it was just a day. So I remember when I was. Just how many memories came from that period of my life, 1999, was just unbelievable. And that was one of them. It was a phenomenal day, that was.
Yeah.
To be part of, especially being the playing.
Yeah, I mean, playing in that game, England were the favourites, and it was a beautiful day. And
they were on to win the Grand Slam.
They were on for winning the Grand Slam.
For winning the Grand Slam, or Six Nations.
And I think that, there were a few decisions in that game where they probably could have won the game. A few bad decisions made. But, we kind of like hung on in for dear life. And then a couple of things happened. One of the cogs in the machine, Scott Gibbs, hit the turbo button. And next thing you know, Neil Jenkins has slotted the points. And a couple of minutes to go, and we've won the game. And I think that because I mentioned the ambition that we've had as a group of players, that the management had, that the whole union had with the stadium. We were hosting the World Cup. There was so much for us. When you talk to your kids about reach for the stars, it was a great opportunity for us to do that. And we went out to Argentina. We won a series over in Argentina. We beat South Africa, which was the first time we'd ever beaten South Africa, opening the stadium. And it was just a phenomenal time.
Mark Taylor scored that again.
Yeah, Tails scored the opening try.
Yeah.
I got knocked out again.
We'll go through you being knocked out in a minute.
But the leader. I mean, I think Howley was the captain. He led by example. His form. I remember him scoring out in France that try. He was the Lions scrum half at the time. He was just an amazing player. The rugby league boys were back. The union players that had dug in through the defeat in South Africa and a few really painful years. It was just a joy to be a joy to be a part of that, and the confidence and that belief in the ambition and that belief in one another was just a great few months.
Arguably a shift in Welsh rugby, because we go in ups and downs, but that just seemed like 99 felt like we've had a 15 to 20 year upward lift from there. That was sort of seemed like a moment. Did it seem like that to you, as obviously playing through that time?
I think it was quite hard, as we were always the underdog. So, and things like people would say, oh, the South Africans or the English or the Australians have been pretty much professional for a decade before us. And so we were always being hit with things that were a negative. And then, with that era in 99, we'd been professionals for 4 years. So that's enough time to be in the gym. That's enough time to get a bit fitter, lose a bit of weight, build your attitude. So I think that the confidence just came back into us, that although we were underdogs for a lot of the games that we played in, we had an ability now to think, well, we're on an even playing field now. We've worked hard enough these last 4 years, from the last World Cup till now. There's been a change of personnel. There's been a new stadium. There's been new coaches, and now is our chance that, there's nothing really holding us back, and there's no reason why we can't succeed.
And that you did.
Yeah, we went well in that World Cup. And 2 of the World Cups I played in, we lost in the quarterfinals to the eventual winners, and both of those games, we gave them a good run.
You could have won that New Zealand game.
We gave them a good run for their money, but I think that it's testament to the guys of 99 and the guys of 2003 to have worked so hard to get to the point that we were quarterfinalists and lost in very, very good quarterfinals. And I think we I said that we laid a bit of a base to that pyramid for the lads moving on. We've got players now that have got 3 Grand Slams. We've got players now that have won Triple Crowns and championships. That we put in a base of, we're not taking anything away from the efforts that they've put in to win those championships and the efforts that they've put in to succeed. But I think we put in a base of, we don't have to be the underdogs. We can believe in one another a bit more now. And it's kind of that, it's that Jack Nicholson as the Joker in that Batman movie. When we all know Batman was going to win, but Batman's nothing without the Joker, and the Joker's line of "wait till they get a load of me," and I think we took that from 99 to about 2004 as Wales growing, and eventually then 2005 with that Grand Slam really showed people how much effort had been put in from the first foundations of that new stadium, from Graham arriving, adapting more to professional rugby, and the players that came and went during that 10-year period to winning a Grand Slam. Yeah,
and then like I said, 2 after that, right?
Yeah.
And then this foundation just felt like that 99 team and that era just felt like that was the shift that we needed.
Yeah, and I think that having chatted to a lot of players who've recently retired, that went through those Grand Slam periods, that they didn't hold any. I don't know what the right phrase is. I remember speaking to one of the players saying, "Well, which one of the players from my era would get in the team now?" And he just said, "None of them."
All right.
And I think, well, fair enough. That's your confidence. That's your opinion. That's your belief in one another.
Yeah.
And I'll take that. And for me, I might say I would have.
I reckon there might be a couple. I think I could.
I would have. I'm probably not even big enough to play on the wing nowadays, though. But
you'd be right, mate. You can go centre back now.
Yeah. But listening to the players now, and Gatland's the huge influence for that, and that leadership, and he installs belief. Warren installed a lot of belief in us. Mike Ruddock with that first Grand Slam installed a lot of belief in the team. And I think that if your leaders can bring that belief you are one step closer to getting that performance right on a Saturday afternoon.
So you mentioned about building mindset. How have you had to build a mindset over the last, in that period to now? What does building mindset actually mean?
Well, I can remember once walking onto the pitch at Twickenham, and one of our players turned to me and said, "What chance have we got? Look at the size of them."
Right.
And you think, well, should we just twist that to the bigger they are, the harder they fall?
Yeah. Let's flip it on his head.
You can't just blindly say that every dog has his day. But if you put the work in, if you train hard, if you get yourself into the right physical condition, if you learn the moves, rehearse the plays, if you know the tactics, if you go through all the defence work, put in your tackles, you know that you can tick all those boxes. Tie your shorts up, tie your laces and pull your socks up. Get yourself into a mind frame of not thinking of reasons why you're going to fail, thinking of reasons why you can succeed. And if we want to go back to every dog has its day, so be it. But you have to go out there with absolute belief that you can perform. And if you perform, if your cog spins with the rest of the cogs in the engine, you can do very well today. Mm-hmm. And who knows? You can win it.
What about your own mindset? Where's that gone? Because, over time, our mindsets change, right? And they go, have you ever been in talk me through the highs, talk me through the lows of where your mindset's been?
Yeah, I think it's, we've got to talk about the lows because they are the dark places that nobody wants to be. Whether it's a performance where we've lost heavily or an injury that's bothering you or putting you out for long periods or things like an up and coming young player could just be taking your spot and the worry about that. But I don't know it word for word. It's up on the wall in my house. If you get a chance to read Rudyard Kipling's If, the final line is something about you'll be a man, my boy. So we should direct it to girls and women as well too. But if you look at that poem, and in that poem, it pretty much tells you of all the darkest places you could go to. And if you can pick yourself up out of them and perform. So the poem was very important to me because it's something my late grandfather installed in me. If you can pick yourself up, son, you can pick yourself up, son, dust yourself off, gather yourself, you'll be a man. And it's something that we all have to do. And we all face adversity. We all face difficult times. And that's before we even put leadership on our shoulders. But it's your character, your physical, your mental strength, your resilience. You've got to pick yourself up. You've got to steady yourself. And you've got to get back into it.
That obviously was emotional. Where did that take you?
Yeah, well, losing my mum when I was 14, pretty much leaving me orphaned. My grandfather stepped in to help, and he was a huge influence in my life. We're now decades on from that. It's still something that travels with me. That it's a traumatic time of my life, and something I would never wish on anybody else. But we all go through these adversities and we all have these difficulties, but it's about picking yourself up. There's never, ever an absolute rock bottom. We can all make a decision to pick ourselves up. Look around, who wants to help? And, whether someone pulls at you, grabs your hand and pulls at you and helps you through it, whether, like I said, you can dust yourself up, stand up with your shoulders back and do it yourself. But we have to do it. We have to keep going. We have to stand up for our team, for ourselves, for our families, in order. But it has to be done.
So one of the questions I ask everyone is, the hardest time you've had to go pull yourself from and had to crack on and get out of that position? Is there one particular one that stands out to you?
I think that defeat in Loftus Versfeld was very, very tough. And people joking about it. That was very, very tough. And I looked around for support then, and the arrival of Graham Henry helped. We had strong characters at Swansea Rugby Club, so you go back to those. The ambition of the Welsh Rugby Union in building that stadium. You knew that we've got 1 year now of hard work, for our nation to make them proud of us in that stadium. So that was a pretty dark time. And of course, the hard thing about coming off that tour in South Africa with that huge defeat was it was weeks before we pulled out our Swansea jerseys or our club jerseys. So you spent a lot of time reflecting on your last game, which was awful.
Yeah.
So that was difficult to get out of.
How did you do that mindset wise? How did you get yourself from that and move yourself on?
Well, I think you've seen Brailsford. He spoke about marginal gains so much, but you've got to look at that period of time when we had a few weeks. It was like a month and a half before we had to play rugby again, and that would be for Swansea. And it was kind of like, right, well, can we improve things a little bit at a time? Do I need to? I can't be taller, but can I be fitter? Do I need to lose a bit of fat? Do I need to be a bit stronger? Do I need to be quicker, more flexible? Is it my right-handed pass that's awful? And it is awful. But
talking about me then.
I think
my right hand is terrible.
I think you've got to, the time frames. When we talk about picking ourselves up, it's the time frames then that you have to turn to your own advantage. When you fall off your bike or fall off the horse, you want to get straight back on it, so long as it's not broken.
Mm.
You want to get straight back on it. But we had to look at that defeat in South Africa. We had a longer period of time. So I knew I could be fitter, I knew I could be stronger. And by increasing those things, your mental capacity, your mental strength, your resilience comes with it. And you feel 3 inches taller, and that's not just the haircut. It's kind of having that ability that whatever the setback, wherever you are, thinking, what is the time frame? Is this my advantage? And if it's immediate, like when we lost against Italy in 2003 and we had to play within a week, if it's immediate, then roll your sleeves up, put your shoulders back and throw yourself straight back into it, because now it's imminent. It's imminent and you've got to work hard now. If you've got a longer period of time, for example, injuries or that heavy defeat at the end of the season, you have longer to reflect, longer to build your resilience, longer to build yourself physically, and you have to make that an advantage.
There's someone's out there that's really struggling. What advice would you give them? I know you said about making that one step, but if they can't see that any light, what you said, there's always a day next day. But what?
Yeah, that tunnel is a difficult one, and we have to remember that not all tunnels are straight. So sometimes we can't see the light, but you have to keep going down the tunnel because you have to believe that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Someone might come and help you. They might have a torch. You might see someone coming in the other direction, so there is an exit point.
Mm.
And I think that when you are struggling to see the light at the end of the tunnel, think about your support groups. Think about the closest people to you, and don't be afraid to ask. There are other people that have been through that tunnel. Ask them how they got to the end. The person coming past in the opposite direction, ask them how far it is to the exit. The person with the torch, ask him if he's got a spare one. You've got to find something. I think it was Michael Jordan used to talk about how if you put a 10-foot wall in front of him, he doesn't care whether he climbs over it, walks around it, asks somebody to give him a ladder, or just charges blindly and shoulders his way through it. He's getting to the other side.
Mm.
So look around you. There's always help.
Was there someone you asked for help back in those days?
Well, I think you've got to be quite logical about it. So if it's an injury, it's the medical staff around you. They might not be giving you good news about the treatment plan and how long it's going to take, but that is your advice, that is your support, that is your help. Think about the other players. Maybe another player's had that injury. Talk to them. And in business, if my business was going under and I looked like I was going bankrupt, I might speak to someone who's already been bankrupt. What would you have done to reverse things?
Yeah.
But whilst we're talking about rugby, I was never the first person to play on the flank for Swansea, London Welsh or Wales. There's plenty of other people to talk to. And believe it or not, a lot of people out there are quite happy to be asked. They want to give you some support. All that knowledge, all that experience that's in their minds, they are happy to share it. I don't know many people who are sat in the corner of the room having experienced all the good and the bad of playing international rugby or playing any elite sport, having that involvement, who sits in the corner and says, I'm keeping this to myself. It just doesn't happen. So go and ask.
I love that. And at the end of your illustrious career, I mean, looking at it, 94 caps, Dragons, gone to France. What was it like to finish? What was it like? Was there like a moment the day after you finished that? What was the feeling? International rugby and obviously for the Dragons when you left the Dragons. What was it like when it was all over?
I think that we are very mindful of how long is your innings. No batsman goes on forever on that day. And I felt that it came to an end, and I was comfortable with it coming to an end. And I kind of believe that the journey's just taken another path now. So no longer am I making sure my boots are tied up. No longer am I putting the tape around my socks, hoping they don't fall down. My journey within rugby will continue. It's such an important part of my life, and I'm still involved with rugby now. And I think that if you can, just change gear a little bit. I'm now in the slow lane on the motorway, pootling along in my van. I'm no longer in the fast lane.
Yeah.
But I'm still on the motorway. And I think that's important, that if you just completely divorce yourself from your sport or what could be your career or your passions, you will feel a fall and you will feel empty. But by maintaining my contact with rugby, my enjoyment of our sport, I still haven't hit that bottom of feeling empty and divorced from the sport.
And I take it that's a bit of identity piece as well, right? When you left rugby or finished rugby, was an identity piece there that you lost a bit of identity with not being that rugby player anymore, or where do you feel that's it?
I still feel an identity and part of the Welsh Rugby Union and part of Swansea Rugby Club and part of London Welsh, the Dragons, Newcastle, Tarbes. I still feel part of them all. There's a photo of me in that jersey, or there's a video archive of me in that jersey. My name is on the wall in the stadium. I am forever a part of that, and I will forever support those teams, and I will forever enjoy my memories of being with those teams and enjoy watching those teams and hopefully seeing them succeed.
I love that. And then from rugby, 10 years in now, your own business, so the transition into, where did that all come about?
So basically a transition from elite performance in sport to trying to run a flooring company.
Oh, you say try, 10 years in. Modesty.
Yeah, I think one of the things changing from elite sport to the construction industry is within elite sport, the person making the baked beans in the morning is doing them to 100% the best of their ability to make those baked beans. And you go and tell them they were great baked beans. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Whereas I think when you move into, obviously, my industry, it becomes a little bit less respectful, a little less honest, and I think integrity drops significantly. And I've found the best thing for me is to try and maintain my values that I lived under 17 years in professional sport, and that journey within my industry, with the industry, that journey will continue, and the more people that come on board with let's show a bit more integrity. Let's show a bit more honesty. Let's show a bit more resilience, a bit more hard work. Let's roll up our sleeves. Let's just get on with things. Let's stop moaning. There's no other fitters. It's just us here today. We are the team. And I find that I see it on building sites, left, right, and centre. You can see those tradesmen who've got that positive, crack on attitude, and their bosses. You can see sat here. I had a skin graft last week.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the thumb.
I was on the tools. Helping out within the business, and now I'm a laughing stock for cutting the tip of my thumb off. But and I think that the people I work with, they see my efforts and I see their efforts, and we show each other a lot more respect, and we show a lot more integrity within the business, and hopefully that's that formula, and we'll stick with it, and hopefully be successful.
There was one, when we spoke a few weeks ago, there was something you said to me that stood out. That you mentioned that you were on the tools, and I don't know who the guy was, but someone sort of said to you, you've dropped a long way down. You're cutting these carpets. You've dropped a long way down.
Yeah, but
what did that feel? Talk us through that.
I think I was on my hands and knees in a block of flats, fitting flooring, and the site manager said to me, "How the mighty have fallen." And I've always thought that no one's too posh to push the broom. I remember when Steve Hansen introduced with the Welsh team that we clean the changing rooms before we leave. And what we do, the decisions we make within a team, whether you're the leader or not, are their decisions that have to suit the team, not yourself. So whether I wanted to be on my hands and knees cutting flooring in a block of flats is irrelevant. It was what was needed for the team, and I was on the tools, and that's as simple as it gets.
Yeah. No. When you said it to me, the first thing I said was what it felt like when that person said that. I think I asked it at the time.
Yeah. Well, I just feel that that's a little bit more of his ignorance than my fall from grace. It doesn't bother me. If I didn't want to do it, I wouldn't do it.
Do it. No. I love that, and that's the leadership piece as well, right?
Yeah, well, like I said, no one's too posh to push the broom. The guys within the company, we're all part of the team, and whether I'm making deliveries, whether I'm on the tools, or whether I'm meeting new customers, it doesn't matter. I do what is necessary, my role within the organisation, within the team, and anybody who wants to judge me for pushing the broom around or cutting the flooring, then that's up to you. You're not in my team.
Yeah, I totally agree. How's it been? How's the journey been for the last 10 years, business-wise?
Business, and I'm sure everyone will say to you, business is tough. Small businesses, high overheads, very little cash flow. We've all business owners have probably got the same staff, probably got the same few gripes. But, I work with a group of people that have learnt that I'm a bit different. We work well together. I take my hat off. I say thank you to them for the work they put in, because, that a lot of the guys, they'll work above and beyond. And I'm really pleased with them for doing that. So when they see me on my hands and knees or slicing my thumb off, I think it's a little bit of a nod to one another that we are working hard for the business. But, it's just, you've just got to get out there. You've got to get out there, find new customers, talk to new people, share information with other trades about, maybe this person's worth talking to, maybe this customer's worth talking to, and if you collaborate, you're going to get a lot further than just blindly thinking I'm Colin Charvis and I can do this all on my own and everyone will come to me and buy flooring, because that's not going to work. So yeah, it's not easy, contrary to popular belief. I don't sit in my office just counting money all day long, but we work hard. When we succeed and we deliver a good project for our customers, we celebrate together and we're happy about that. When things go a bit south, we all dig in together, and I'll push the broom around.
Yeah. So a lot of lessons learned from rugby, right?
Yeah, I think that the one of the difficult things outside of elite sport is that people can think that the management, they're there to get one over on, you know, sneaking off early, cutting a corner, you know, they're traits that some people have that they think is normal, and it's things that the management then look at and think, why do we have to go through this all the time? But I think when you work well as a team and everyone realises the management are working as hard as the people on the floor, you'll work well together. And I can remember with Steve Hansen, it was just before we were going on tour. We'd always have this one, have a bit of a night out and a few drinks to let our hair down, and the following morning, the toughest fitness session of the week.
Right.
And it was brutal. And then we'd finish that fitness session, and then we'd watch the management do the same fitness session. And God bless them, some of them you thought they were going to have a heart attack.
Wow.
But it just goes to show that when your management are prepared to put in the effort, that the players are prepared to put in the effort, those cogs in the machine are all working together and working hard. And I try and have that within the business. And you know, it's just another one of those lessons learned from another coach.
That's a cracker. I'd love to do some fitness. I'd love to be part of that setup, mate. I would. I think it's a fantastic setup. Steve Hansen, I listened to a podcast. He was on the High Performance podcast about 2 months ago. Really enlightening. I thought, have you always seen a couple of questions on that, the backroom staff and always putting it in? Was there a certain time where it wasn't being put in and you could see those cogs not working?
Sometimes I think the difficulty I've ever found with coaches was probably right at the beginning of my career, when I thought I knew everything and knew nothing, and right at the end of my career when I knew quite a lot,
Yeah.
but probably didn't know how to express it properly.
Yeah.
In my frustrations, and I think that for coaches, you know, they've got a very, very tough job, you know. As a captain, when you're in the management meeting, picking the team for the weekend, you know, and you know you know someone's going to go and speak to that player and say, you're not in the team, you're not starting, or you're not on the bench, and that's tough. Then you've got coaches that are full of enthusiasm and passion, and you respect them because they motivate the team, and they're probably much better managers of the players because they get it and they understand that that emotion that's involved with putting on the jersey. And then you've got coaches as well who are just very technically minded, and the technical aspect of rugby should never be underestimated, because you know, it doesn't matter how big and fast you are, you know, you've still got a lot of laws of the game to know and a lot of skills to be able to use. And I think for coaches, trying to balance out all of that in 1 week's training between 2 matches is tough. It's tough. And I knew with Graham, he had a huge influence on Wales, and a huge influence on me. Mike Ruddock, Steve Hansen, you know, and I kind of want to just, there've been other very positive coaches in my life. I mean, John Dawes, when I was at London Welsh, what a great guy. Put me on my path. Mm-hmm. And it's just about trying to find the snippets from each of them and adopt them yourself, because you can't be all of one person, but just try and take a few little things from each one. And if you can impart them on others, then so be it. And if someone wants to turn around to me and say, that's the worst idea I've ever had, then so be it. But just be open-minded. And if you've got a better one, I want to hear it.
Amen. And give us the snippets then you took from him. What do you take from Graham Henry? I'm really interested in, you know, I heard a really good saying. Rhys Thomas said it on the body never lies, right? Rhys Thomas, ex-Dragons, obviously got a heart condition, but talked about the body keeps count. I love that saying, with the body keeps count. What what were the things that installed? You know, what changed you and adapted you? What did they install in you over that time? What did Graham Henry, all those coaches give you?
So if I try and think of just maybe one thing from each of the guys I've mentioned. So Graham Henry was detail. You know, he introduced a level of detail as to how we played the game that I'd never seen before.
Fantastic.
I would say with Mike Ruddock, there was he was very technical, but the belief, you know, when I was with Swansea for so long and starting off with Mike, he created so much belief that, you know, without that, where are you going? Who else was so Steve Hansen. Steve's probably was more about discipline, and you know, sometimes I wasn't sure whether I liked the guy or I didn't like the guy, but about discipline. You know, that the process of being the best you can possibly be takes a lot of discipline, and you can't shy away from that. And even down to things like, you know, we think it's very simple to miss a day at work, or we think it's very simple, obviously, with sport, to miss a day of training or miss a day at the gym. But we forget about it's accumulative. You can't catch up that day. That day you cut a corner, that day you had off, that day you didn't front up mentally, you didn't focus. You've cut a corner, you cannot catch that up. And if you think about putting £10 in the bank every week, you need £520 at the end of the year. You don't need 480. You know, and that was the discipline, to make sure that everything that you did had a purpose and was part of that accumulation growing towards your goals. So yeah, that was Steve's discipline.
I love, it's just some real nuggets, mate, nuggets. One thing I'm really interested in as well, you would have had to sacrifice to get to where you got to, 94 caps. You'd have had to sacrifice things. What's the biggest thing you sacrificed over that period of time?
I'm going to change your words a little bit there.
Okay.
Because I try not to see things that way. The sacrifice, you know, birthdays, weddings, bar mitzvahs, whatever it be, they're not sacrifices, they're choices. You know, and your family and friends are part of those choices. You didn't go to their wedding because you were on tour in Australia. You missed your nan's birthday because you had a game the next day and didn't want to travel back from the Midlands. So I think that when we make choices and we change our mindset, we're making choices, and if they're positive, they are moving towards those goals. They are moving towards that discipline we just spoke about, and accumulation of getting to where we need to be. As soon as I started, or people start thinking about sacrifices, it's something tugging at you, it's pulling you backwards, it's giving you a reason to doubt, it's giving you a reason to, if as soon as you've got doubt, there's a reason to fail. So I think, again, maybe a bit too much CBT here.
No, that's good.
But just think of them as choices. If you truly think of something as a sacrifice and regret it or doubt it, then you've got to deal with that. And that's a little bit of baggage that comes with you. If you treat it as a choice, it's a step forward. That's going towards the light at the end of the tunnel.
Or finding someone with a torch.
Yeah.
That's going to stay with me. It's going to stay with me. I really, really like that one. I got so you met probably arguably the biggest leader of all time, Nelson Mandela. What was that? What was the moment like? But what were the, you know, give me an understanding of, you know, just talk us through it. Talk us through exactly what that meant to you.
Yeah, I think that, you know, for me, that was at the end of, the end. At that point, you know, I was the first man of colour to captain Wales, and it meant a lot to me. And it, you know, listen to my accent, look at the granny gate. You know, for me to have that privilege and that honour, having not been born here in Wales, that really to me felt like I'm finally adopted in to being Welsh. And then meeting Nelson Mandela and being the captain of Wales, being the person that got to shake his hand first and speak to him first, it was incredible that someone like Mr. Mandela would give his time to come and talk to some rugby guys and shake our hands. And I think that there's certain people, that aura, that presence, that charisma. It's almost like every time they shake their hands, they're leaving an imprint on your hand, that you grow another inch. And I felt that's what Mr. Mandela was, that without even saying words to you, just him giving his time to come and shake your hand was enough. And you put your shoulders back a little bit more, you stand a little bit taller, and you take those moments with you. And when you are in a dark place, and when you are having difficulties, when we are looking at whether it's a sacrifice or a choice, think about some of the other people who've shaken your hand and left an imprint. Think what they would do. Think about them giving you a little push in the back and go on, son, walk to the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I can picture it. I can feel it as well. Those people that influence your life, those moments. I bet that was a moment in itself, by the sounds of that.
Yeah, it was incredible, and to then introducing him to the rest of the team. Now, we didn't get to have coffee and cakes and have a long chat about things. I didn't get his opinion on the Spanish Inquisition, but you don't need to. If someone like that can give you a moment, that's all you need. That's all you actually need. And I think if you read his book, The Long Walk to Freedom, if you speak to any South Africans about how they are so proud of Modiba, they call him over there, but it's just one of those moments of let a little bit of it soak in. I know we've got a job to do in a minute, playing against the Box.
Yeah.
And they're pretty big.
Yeah, they're quite big characters.
They're aggressive.
Yeah.
But you do take a moment to let that sink in. And now, some 20 years on, I can sit back and look at that photo and let that moment sink in again, because it's not just about celebrating every victory when it happens. It's not about those inspirational moments that when they happen. It's just taking some time every now and then, having a cup of coffee, looking at your fish tank, have a walk on the beach, through the forest or wherever you are, and just think about those moments. Because like we say about going to the gym being accumulative, the investment in yourself at university is accumulative. Those moments that people give you, they're also accumulative, and you have to sit and remember them, otherwise they're going to go.
Yeah. And you said the first player of colour. Did that make a big? Because I've got a really good quote from the best way of evil.
The best way for evil to thrive is for good men to do nothing. Yeah, and I find that with my involvement with an anti-racism charity called Show Racism the Red Card, and we do a lot of work with school kids, and whether it's, let's be fair, whether it's racism, sexism, ageism, and all the other isms under there, more often than not, it thrives because someone hears something and doesn't react to it. But for me to hold you up and say, "Oh, hold on a minute, mate, I don't think it's right you say that." It's not just about that person being offended. I just don't think it's right. Doesn't matter whether I'm offended or not. I'm not that liberal about things, but and I think that yes, the best way for evil to thrive is for good men to say nothing. And it's the same with your culture at work. Yeah. If someone's cutting corners and everyone doesn't mention it, how are we all going to grow as an organisation? So whether it be racism, whether it be cutting corners at work, whether it be any other of the bullying attitudes that we see in the world, good people have to stand up and speak.
Yeah, my training sessions with tacit approval, right? So when someone just doesn't say anything about it, just walks over something, doesn't say something to that person, they actually, as a leader, they're then saying it's okay.
Yeah, and well, there's another phrase, isn't there, about the noise of silence. So if I don't make a comment, or you don't say, "Oh, hold on a minute, let's have a little chat about that," that silence is giving people the go-ahead to show certain behaviours. And you find within elite sport that people speak very quickly, about, oh, you might not be doing that the right way, which could be something as simple as lifting a weight or the way you hold the ball when you pass it. So, but if it's your behaviours, your attitudes, people will speak up, because at the end of the day, we need all the cogs in the machine to work. And that is because everyone in that elite environment is focused towards exactly the same goal. However, when we come to our everyday life, you can become suddenly the most outspoken person in the room because you're from an environment where that is acceptable. And I think we need to allow ourselves to be in a space where if you don't agree with someone, if you don't appreciate what they're saying, if it's not bringing joy, it's doing exactly the opposite, speak out. We have to do that.
Do you feel in Wales, and I watched the documentaries, do you feel in Wales that element, do you think it's a nation that obviously you felt at home in Wales? Is there some, what I like when he's talking about the terraces, and people would pull each other up on the terraces, so there were, racism isn't a big thing in Welsh rugby. Do you feel that we're still there? Do you think that?
I mean, crikey, we need hours.
Yeah.
We need hours to talk about this. So I'd like to try and think about my attitudes and my experiences there. Yes, I've heard racist shouts from the crowd, but at the end of the day, I've been in rugby matches where, the fact that you were ginger, or you were fat, or you were tall, or you were brown skinned like me, someone was going to say something. Now, I'm not saying that it's right, but I think that it's almost an ignorance that someone in the terrace just wanting to shout some abuse is shouting some abuse. I genuinely don't think that person hates all people of colour and wants us all to leave the country. I don't think that's the case. All it takes is for the person next to him to say, mate, yeah, could have phrased that better.
Yeah, said differently.
I don't think that's the right thing to be shouting. So, and again, if I sat with my grandma, Sylvia, 96 years old, and she came over from Jamaica, crikey, it must be 60 years ago, and maybe more. And if I sat with her and we spoke about racism, she would probably be shocked to think we're still talking about the same topic now as she did 60 years ago. And frankly, the best thing we can do is just not tolerate it. If we hear it, stamp it out.
Yeah.
Just say to people, I don't appreciate that.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I don't think I live in an extremely racist society. And I think it's a lot better than when I first moved to Wales in 1995. But every little bit of ignorance, let's just stomp it out.
Yeah, say something about it. Yeah. But moving, I have got one rugby question I want to go back to just quickly. And that just that tackle, the Jerry Collins tackle. The bit that got the thing that looking into what I didn't realise is Umaga put you in to a recovery position and put your gum shut there, didn't he?
Yeah. So
talk us through that hit. Talk us through. I know it goes back to sort of proper rugby question, but even I've watched it over and over and gone, ouch, every time. The one question I'd ask you, is it yellow or is it red? If it was now, and what was it like back then? Can you remember any of it?
So just to give a basis of what a bad concussion can be like, is I can't remember a few minutes from before the event,
right,
from before the tackle. I can remember little snippets of coming in and out of consciousness, probably for about 4 hours, and then you're pretty ill afterwards. You feel pretty ill,
right,
and it was an odd tackle now when we compare it to the modern game, because I think in the modern game it would be a straight red. There's no. We need a referee in now to talk about when the TMO says mitigating. Was I low?
Was you lowering down or not?
Was my body low? Was this? Was that? But now there's direct shoulder to head collision, so it would be a red card now. What I would say is that and well deserved. Was Tana got the award for rolling me over, taking my gum shield out. I'd swallowed my tongue, so I wasn't breathing. So he helped significantly there. And what I would say as well, when I left the hospital in New Zealand, I went to see the team, so the team could see me on my feet, and that was okay. And first guy to come over to me and have a chat with me to make sure I was okay was Jerry Collins. And when he moved to Wales to play for the Ospreys, I got on well with him. He was a nice guy and thoroughly loved guy, a very missed guy by those that were very close to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, things like that, like what I mentioned about you have setbacks. There was nothing I could have done to have prevented that. It was shocking when you watch it. Our next game against New Zealand was just a couple of months later in the Rugby World Cup, and I just remember going into that game pretty straight-minded about if he's got the ball in front of me, he gets hit, and if I've got the ball in front of him, I'll get hit.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. What I would say, is that it gives people an opportunity. If you watch it on YouTube, it gives people an opportunity to look at the guys in elite sports and see them as pretty much human again. Whether it be my injury or Tana Umaga's compassion. That on that pitch, we want to go at it hard. That's what's going to give you the best entertainment, and that's the only way to win the game. But we are still humans.
Yeah, that's what I took from it. I thought rugby family, because if anyone else on the floor, I would do the same, and you would too, right? You'd help the other person out. It just got me thinking then about you, because you played through the sweet spot, didn't you, of this concussion, the concussion part, and that hit itself would have definitely had an impact on you of some sort. How was that rolled out since you stopped?
Yeah, I think that there's a quite a big issue with world rugby at the moment, and a lot of players suffering with brain injuries. We've got some players with pretty obvious early onset dementia, and we're looking at now whether it's as a result of the rugby career and all the concussions. I feel quite a bit relieved that from when I first became a professional rugby player, you could get knocked out on the pitch, the smelling salts were under your nose, and you just carried on. To now, the protocols are pretty robust, and seeing the guys getting looked after very well. And I'm pleased that the rugby has made that transition, because keeping the boys and girls, men and women, safe has got to be the priority of the lawmakers within world rugby. I feel that there is a bit of a ticking time bomb, that there's going to be more and more players coming out with brain injuries, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone. But what we've got to do is have a robust system of support that, just like so many years on, I may need a new knee, and my knee has finally given up. There's going to be other parts of these players that give up eventually, and if it's support for players emotionally and their families in the event of these brain injuries, we need a robust system looking after that. And let's look at the leadership of World Rugby and the leadership of the Welsh Rugby Union. That I'm sure they are looking at setting something up to support these guys. We're very, very lucky that we have lots and lots of surgeons out there to put a new knee in or a new hip from time to time. Yeah. But the guys are worried. Guys are worried that these brain injuries are going to affect them, and also because we don't know how it's going to affect everyone. So yeah, we need to look at that support system, and I'm sure our leaders, the custodians of our well-being from back in the day, are doing exactly that.
So what do you think talk about World Rugby rather than WRU then? What have they got to do? What is the leadership step got to, you said about doing something, listening and putting something in place, what have they got to do?
I think with the big problem is it's in the hands of lawyers, and that's whether it's the IRB's lawyers, or it's in the hands of the players and the lawyers representing them. I think we need to focus more on the solutions and the support. That there is no denying there are a lot of players who are struggling at the moment, and they need support. And for me, if I could offer any support to people, I would. I'm not holding my hand up and saying it's my fault. I'm not saying you were naive, it's your own fault. I just think give the support that's needed.
Yeah, that's fair. I've got 2 questions left for you, mate. What does the future hold for Colin Charvis?
Yeah, well, I've got my life, my family, keep everyone happy, keep everyone safe, warm, and with a full belly. Pretty simple things, really. I would like to continue my role on the periphery of rugby. Like I said earlier about all the knowledge that's in people's heads. You can't just leave it there and sit in the corner and be grumpy. So I have a lot of knowledge about rugby, whether it be when I was a kid playing or the elite sport end of it. So if I can share that, I'll share that as much as I can. But again, that we all want to see our families happy, our friends happy, have a bit of enjoyment along the way ourselves, and whether that be watching Wales play rugby, seeing my business succeed, seeing the people grow within my business, whatever it be. I have pretty simple needs. Wake up in the morning smiling, go to bed smiling, and I just want to continue with that. Really, I'm in no way out there trying to set up the world's or the nation's biggest flooring company. I'm quite happy with what I've got. It's just I enjoy rugby, and I would like to see a lot more people enjoy the sport because it has so much to offer. And that's it, pretty really.
I said 2 questions. I've actually one just popped into my head. Are you happy at the moment?
I am happy at the moment. Life is full of challenges. We've got the hangover of COVID. We've got doom and gloom and wars all over the world. And I feel for those people. And I know that it is doom and gloom out there. And I know all you have to do is switch on the radio, pick up a newspaper, listen to the news. And I know life is very, very hard for a lot of people. To make myself happy, and if this sounds selfish, I focus on the things that I'm grateful for. I've cherished the memories, the people who have meant a lot to me, the things that we've achieved as a group, the things I've achieved on my own, the picture of me and Mr. Mandela that's on the mantelpiece. I'm just very, very grateful for what I have. And if that can keep me happy, that'll keep me happy.
Brilliant. Last question. I ask everyone to go back. Let's go back to 14-year-old Colin. What bit of advice would you give a 14-year-old Colin?
Well, I know that a 14-year-old Colin would not want to hear this. But the word is compliance. That when you comply, you're more likely than not to succeed. And I found that within elite sport, that compliance, as soon as I complied more, I was more successful. And that is diet, that is the training regime, that is habits, that is lifestyle, that is listening to the coaches, paying attention, taking your notebook and writing down the moves. That I know we don't want a bunch of robots walking around. So 14-year-old Colin would have said straight back to you, nah, mate. No, I'm an individual. I'm an enigma. I know my own path. And so maybe it's not 100% compliance then, Colin, but more often than not. Do you remember when we were kids? And how long did it take us to learn, go and brush your teeth and put your uniform on, and then you can sit and watch TV? Compliance.
Yeah. And do the simple things well, right?
Yeah. You say do the simple things well. Like within rugby, tie your shoelaces, tie your boots. They're not going to fall off. tie your shorts, they're not going to fall down. Practice your tackling, your pass. Practice everything. Rehearse everything. Tick all those tiny boxes. There's a lot of them. Then the really hard thing about knocking over that really big Frenchman, that's the only thing you've got to worry about.
And on that note, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Mate, that's been amazing. Thank you ever so much for coming on.
Yeah, no